All right, guys, here we go. It is now Wednesday, December the 4th. It is 2019. Welcome in. It's another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show. It is powered by WagerTalk.com. I'm Joe Raineri. He is the man, Ralph Michaels. WagerTalk.com, of course, is where you can find him. Also, you can check us out over at SportsMemo.com. College basketball, what a night last night. Even better night tonight. Love this whole ACC Big Ten matchup challenge. Great stuff, Ralph. And we got a bunch of games here to get to, a couple of marquee matchups. We'll have some trends. We'll get to the big performers last night. But wow, the two marquee matchups that we talked about yesterday, Louisville and Michigan. I'm thinking Michigan-Louisville should probably play that game 4 more times. We might get to the over in that game, Ralph. I'm just saying, we might be. They got to play it 4 times, and we should be good to go.
Shit, Joe, that was 101 points. That may be a lot compared to Virginia and Purdue tonight. You never know. So, I mean, my God, what are you talking for? God, team got to 58. That's like crazy talk. So, you look at it as a whole. The two marquee games, the ACC take with Duke and Louisville, but Indiana's a good win against Florida State. Northwestern's a good win. Iowa knocking off Syracuse. It was a good matchup. So more of that tonight.
Did we really learn anything about Michigan? I mean, should we have expected anything else given the fact that it was 3 games in 3 days flying, then they're on the road? It seemed like they seemed a little tired, a little out of sync. The defense really got to them at Louisville. Very long, very athletic. It just that whole screen, the whole screen situation didn't work very well for Michigan last night.
Well, the thing to remember is this. There's many teams that haven't played a true road game. That was Michigan's first true road game.
Correct.
And all they did is this. They won a couple games early, and then they went down in a setting that they liked in the Bahamas, and they shot 50% for 3 straight games, which you're going to win. Well, they weren't going to sniff 50% last night, and playing the first true road game against a team that, was an excited number 1. So, no, are they better than we thought with Juwan Howard? Yes. Mm-hmm. Are they the 4th best team in the country? No. So, they're somewhere in between that, and we're still going to learn a lot.
How shocked should we be that, first of all, Duke won and Michigan State at home looked as bad as they do? Isn't Michigan State notoriously slow starting, right? Isn't this always the key with Izzo? It always takes them until January, February. I mean, they're going to be there in the end. They're that talented. Plus, Langford's coming back. I mean, should anybody be hitting a panic button at Michigan State?
Well, all I heard yesterday was, Duke has dominated Michigan State. Well, I'll tell you what. If you have Elite 8 revenge from the year before and your kids are focused, a lot of those guys are gone, but there's still other kids that played, and the coach still know he lost that game on a buzzer beater. So, don't discount the fact that Duke may have really had that game circled, that they wanted some revenge. They may not be coming out and saying it unless you're really deep into the program. You don't know it, but, a loss is one thing. A tournament loss is higher. And then the further you go in the tournament, the more you remember that revenge situation.
Yeah, I mean, impressive win there. And, of course, that big kid for Duke, man, they didn't have any answer for him whatsoever. I'm not sure any team is going to have any answer for him. And they weren't without Cassius Stanley, and they still just absolutely dominated in that game. So good win for them. No panic time just yet, guys. Plenty of basketball to go. And we'll take a look at some of these big games here, some of the upsets last night that we witnessed here, like we like to start off with, give you an idea of some of these teams and some of these games here that were surprising to say the least there. And Charleston Southern Mizzou there, I think that would that be one of them there, Ralph?
Yeah, I mean, you're one of the biggest upsets of the year, a 26-point dog winning outright by 8. So nothing fluky about that. You'll see that on the top heading, I listed there were 13 upsets as dogs by 2.5 or more. We just list the top 6. Mm-hmm. And another thing to just pay attention to, when you're looking at these December games, you're going to find some upset situations because teams haven't played for multiple days. A lot of times they go through their finals breaks. A lot of times the kids aren't in school, so the home crowd is completely different than it is. So that's something you have to take into consideration this entire month of December. But Charlotte going down against Asheville and Coppin State. We talked about Coppin State being a team that has covered the spread and continues to cover the spread. Well, they got the outright win against East Carolina, Duke, and Texas Rio Grande Valley, and St. Joe's going down.
Yeah.
Was a bit of surprise. Not that they lost, but losing by 23 to Lafayette was a surprise.
Absolutely, given that line was 5, and of course some of the outstanding top performers that we had here last night. Ralph, we talked UTSA before this week, but Keaton Wallace comes out last night against 31, 5-2. I mean, these are some pretty gaudy, impressive numbers by some of these kids.
It is, and then you look at Stanford, and again, that's the asterisk because they played a lower division school, right, scoring 27 points. But, Leslie Varner, we've mentioned his name on this show already, from Texas Rio Grande.
Big time.
They're the ones that pulled the upset against Sam Houston. They scored 90 points. He put up 31, 6, and 3. And, anytime you look at Jacob Gilliard in Richmond and you get 10 assists, that pops out to me on the leaderboard there of the best performances.
Yeah, Kamar Baldwin, Butler, 2, Old Miss. That was a hell of a battle, 31, 6, and 3. Also very impressive there last night, as were some of these against the spread covers. Not only the numbers, but, of course, the totals, Ralph. And, you said it, 28 points there, right in the middle there with St. Joe's. My word, what was going on there?
Yeah, there were a lot of games today. So once I finish today's games, I go back and read the games that I don't know what happened. So I'm not sure how that occurred or what the case was, but to me, that's clearly a shocker on the board. And Northern Kentucky was a very good team that's won the Horizon a few years. And, their coach went to Cincinnati, so they have a new coach. But, them blowing out Miami to me isn't nearly as eye-popping as the St. Joe's game.
Yeah, no, it was some interesting games last night, some impressive games, and like you said, a couple of first road games, and we talked about Memphis last night taking on Bradley, and again a Bradley team, Ralph, that hadn't really played anybody to this point. Memphis blows them out, the best team by far. Though there's we're still probably a couple of weeks. That's what it's going to be like. We're still going to get a lot of firsts from a lot of these teams.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just looking now. Lafayette was 14 of 28 from three-point land.
That'll do it.
Shooting 50% is one thing. Mm-hmm. Making 14 of them is a whole nother thing. And, I don't see anything, else that stands out. Their free throws were 12 of 14, but St. Joe's was 13 of 18. St. Joe's was 8 of 27. So six more three-pointers, couple more two-pointers, and you have what you have. Well, the biggest overcovers, you see some totals there of 140, 129, and 148.5, and you see teams 90, 85, and 98. So Texas, Rio Grande Valley, Eastern Michigan up in the tempo against Valpo, and then Louisiana.
Yep. Drake, how about Wisconsin, Milwaukee, too? That's another one that we were expecting some scoring there. Didn't get it, especially Creighton, too. Oral Roberts, Rob. A lot of people were expecting we were going to get to, 90s and 80. We were going to get 170 points. Didn't make it, Ralph. Didn't make it at all.
Yeah, it's one of those games. I mean, Creighton had played. Creighton was just off a game against Texas Tech. Mm-hmm. Perhaps that Tech game took a lot out of them. We know Tech has a physical defense, and Creighton was off that overtime win against Tech. So perhaps just a little bit of a letdown spot where they got off to the slow start after pulling that outright upset. Scoring wise, they didn't actually. I'm looking now. They scored 46 points in the first half. They only scored 26 points in the second half with the lead. So, it's just they slowed the pace. They didn't have to rush it because they had the lead. Oral Roberts never cut it to within that 10-point mark where they had to change their pace of play. And, it sometimes happens in one of those close games when you're looking for a second half breather. They got it, and that's the way they played it.
We'll go ahead and take a look at the market here coming up like we do, guys, but also want to remind you, wagertalk.com is where you guys can go here today. Opportunities galore. Major card here in college hoops here tonight. You can go to the Cal Sports page at wagertalk.com. Packages available, plays always available, guys. You can find them each and every day at wagertalk.com. And before we get, of course, to the plays here, Ralph, we'll look at some of the market movements, but we like to talk some trends and angles here heading into this card tonight. Were there any trends or angles that stuck out to you here on this card?
Well, looking just at some four situations again, I'm going to say this till you guys get sick of it, but we have so many new viewers each and every day. Mm-hmm. I'm just giving you trends and angles so you can follow along how a team has been performing. It doesn't mean you should bet this team because of this trend or angle, but hey, you're going to think in your mind, this team's done this, they're playing this way, they're a team I'm going to look at, or perhaps a team to look to fade. Well, the first is Virginia has just been absolutely money on the road, and we've said it so many times, defense travels. They're 32-8 ATS on the road. So if you blindly played Virginia on the road, you have covered 80% of the time.
Yep.
Defense.
I'm still shaking my head at this line, Ralph. It still cracks me up.
Colorado, another good home team. Obviously, The altitude helps them. They're 28-10-3 at home. And they're playing a Loyola Maryland team. Loyola Maryland on the road, 3-18 over/under away. And I also add in Colorado's stats. Colorado 17-24 over/under at home. So you have a Maryland team that has gone under 85% of the time on the road, and a Colorado team that has gone under 59% at home. And then Utah, we've mentioned them a few times, 10-1 over/under at home. The only under game was when they were playing a dead under. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. So, Joe, let's talk about those the games that have the most money. I'm sure that's going to be those ACC Big Ten games, but tell us about those biggest line movers as well and the biggest percentages.
Yeah, some very interesting games here, maybe a little bit off the beaten path because there are some big quality, the big boys are going out here tonight. But I'll tell you one, Ralph, here, and it'll be, of course, my alma mater I'll focus it on, Oklahoma State and Georgetown. That's an 8 p.m. game here tonight. I didn't know what to expect here, Ralph, today with the news of Georgetown, with guys looking at transfer. All of a sudden, things were going so well for Patrick Ewing at Georgetown. It looked like it was going to be, maybe they could break through, and then turmoil and drama hit the program, and now all of a sudden, here they go. They find themselves taking on a pretty darn good Oklahoma State team who is opened up at 10. It hasn't moved much. The total is down to 144. It's hovering around that 11-point mark in a lot of books right now. But, I mean, what do you do when a program like that, Georgetown, all of a sudden gets blown up like this? And is it an instant fade in your mind?
It depends on how long they've known for it. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't play on Georgetown.
Right.
So the first game is either pass or fade. And part of the reason, to me, I would lean towards the fade is because you're missing your starting point guard. I mean, he's the one relevant person that has been kicked off the team. So, you're missing your starting point guard, and it's going to be a situation where, you don't have time to back it up.
Right.
Aquino is his name, the kid that got kicked off. He had started all 7 games. He averaged 13 points, and even the backup was averaging 7 points and 3 rebounds. So, excuse me. There's times it could be a bonding. There's times it could be where a team rallies because it's us against the world. But missing 2 integral pieces, including the point guard, it's not a situation I'm looking at to play.
Yeah, a lot of people, like you said, it's a ton of money and a ton of tickets, almost like an instant fade. People are back in Oklahoma State, money line on the spread, and just about everything else there. Another interesting game here on the card route that seems to be getting some love. And let me make sure that I have the number. The total seems to be going through the roof here. How about Iona and Connecticut? UConn, another one of those. UConn is shell of itself too, much like Georgetown, but they do seem to be putting things together. The Gales of Iona, who were a little bit of surprise there in the tournament last year. Actually, the last couple of years, they've been actually really, really good. What do you think here? Because I'm seeing a lot of love being thrown to UConn, but even more love on the total. Opened up at 138, up to 146 in some places here, Ralph.
Oh, you have two top 100 tempo teams. So, from Connecticut and Hurley, he's played faster this year than he did in his first year. But, a lot to that says is he has more upperclassmen playing this year. Mm-hmm. And I like UConn. I think they're
Me too.
They're a team in the AAC that's going to be, they're just below the first rung of teams. And you look at what they've done. Losing to Xavier in 2 overtimes is a very good loss. Losing to St. Joe's at home, well, that was game 2, and we see St. Joe's lose last night, so we have to make out of that. But, they beat Florida. They beat Miami of Florida. They have a couple good wins. They don't have another game until 6 days on deck when they host Indiana. And Iona, what do you have with them? Right. I think that's the reason is because, you lose to LaSalle and Ohio to start the season, and then you play 2 horrible teams in Stetson and Kennesaw, and you don't press the pace because you don't have to because, you won by 13. So, obviously someone's on it. I don't really understand the move to the over as much as it's moved, but it's a thing we'll watch and see what happens.
Yeah, one other game here, and let me just make sure here. But there is another game that's getting an awful lot of love. Also, it seems that the total seems to be getting love. It's also a pretty good team, Ralph. It's Maryland. Maryland and Notre Dame here tonight, getting ready to do battle. As far as a pure play standpoint, outside of course, a couple of the marquees, obviously Ohio State, North Carolina, and Virginia, Purdue, which we'll talk about coming up. Maryland, Notre Dame, right up there from a handle standpoint, but the total, it's also going up. It opened up at 140, 140 and a half. I'm seeing 145 already, although 9.5 points, pretty steadfast there with Maryland, even though we've got that many bets coming in on it.
Well, Maryland, a very fast team. One of I think there's 20 teams still undefeated at 8-0. And, their scores are high because they've played some very fast-paced teams. They are just off that win against Marquette. Well, we know Marquette's going to push the pace with anyone. So, Mark Turgeon, to me, has, besides Michigan State, they're 1A and 1B in the Big Ten in my book. So the interesting thing is, though, we'll see how much he goes to his bench and what he wants to use because he's used a lot of players early. And you have Illinois on deck, and Illinois is not going to be the team where is going to challenge you, but Illinois is a game that you're going to think about close enough playing this Saturday. So interesting scheduling spot. You're between the neutral game with Marquette. You're home to Notre Dame this week, and then just in 2 days, you're hosting your conference opener.
Yep, and those are obviously we'll get to the 2 big ones too. There is another game. I don't know if we'll situationally. I know it's interesting, but also from a marketing standpoint here or a market standpoint, it's also getting a ton of views and a ton of action here, Ralph, and it's got to do with that darn team. What were they again? Oh yeah, Texas Tech. Texas Tech DePaul here tonight, Ralph, which I think is going to be very interesting. It's getting a ton of support, certainly from the betting markets here. It kind of swung the other way right now. What opened up as a possible pick'em now has opened up towards a lot of Texas Tech love. And, we've talked about Texas Tech where it's going to take, Chris Beard and company a little while to get together. They haven't played all that well to start the season. DePaul has been nothing but fantastic. I don't know, man. Do you agree with the line movement here?
I just think a lot of it goes by reputation. DePaul has oppressed the hell out of me going into Iowa and winning, and then beating Minnesota like they did. Those are their only true competitors that they've played. But we talked about the Texas Tech team, bereft of seniors like they're accustomed to and playing freshmen. And what happens? Well, you win your games at home against nobodies. Your first 5 games that you won, nobody was a top 200 team. So you beat a bunch of sisters of the poor, and then you play Iowa and Creighton. What happens? Neutral setting, you lose both games. You lose the Creighton game in overtime, and now this is your first true road game. So to me, Texas Tech's in a fade situation. I haven't completely bought into Paul to be able to back him tonight.
Yeah, I mean, DePaul gets a lot of their offense guys from inside the interior there. Inside happens to be one of the strengths of Texas Tech, so maybe that's why they think it's a good bounce-back situation from them. But, man, they look terrible in your neck of the woods there, Ralph, in the Las Vegas Invitational. Plus, they got a little banged up. So, interesting game tonight, one of many on the card. And, we like to look at maybe some of the dogs here, Ralph. Maybe this is one of them. Is there a game on the board here tonight where an underdog has piqued your interest?
Yeah, I'm going to an ugly game, Joe, and I am going with UC Davis.
Ooh.
UC Davis getting about 5.5 or 6 against Northern Arizona, and you look at Northern Arizona. They have played 2 teams. They've played 2 lower division teams, which they've beaten. So they've played exactly 2 games, 2 lined games this year. That's it. They lost to Arizona back on November 6th, and they beat South Dakota November 30th. So in a span of 24 days, you've played 2 foes, plus 2 lower division teams. You look at UC Davis. UC Davis has played 9 games already. They just got done playing Sacramento State, Portland, California, and Utah. And while they're 2-7, they're a tested team. They only lost at Cal by 6. They only lost to Utah by 4. They're 6-2 against the spread. I like this. They've covered their last 2 games against the spread. They're not 6-2. They were 2-6 against the spread, but they covered against each of the Pac-12 foes. I just like this tested team that's been battled against a team that's really played nobody to start the year, and I will back game number 851 UC Davis.
Like that. I like that a lot, as a matter of fact. But I'm going to stick with the game we just talked about here. I don't agree with the line move. I'm with you, and it looks to me, Ralph, from the market standpoint anyway, as of taping here, this number is going to get higher towards Texas Tech, and it's perception versus reality at this particular point, Ralph. I was pretty impressed with DePaul and what they've got going on here. I think they can score with the best of them. I think Texas Tech has got to be they're 1-4 against the number in the last 5 against winning teams. They're 1-2 against the number in the last 11 against the Big East. I think DePaul's got something working here. I like them in this spot, and quite honestly, if the number's going to keep going towards the Texas Red Raiders simply because it's Texas Tech, I'll take DePaul. I like them in this spot here tonight, Ralph.
I mean, there's no question it's perception versus reality. You have a team that could have won the national championship game that lost in the finals against a DePaul team that went 19-17 last year. So, how the hell can they not be favored?
Yep. Yeah, and they're turning the ball over a lot too. 13 to 14 turnovers a game right now. They're not shooting well. They'll be better as the season goes on, but I don't trust the Red Raiders in this particular spot. I'll back DePaul, especially at DePaul in this one. All right, Ralph, talk to us about situational spots here. Is there a situational? We talked about the revenge spot with Duke last night, of course. Getting ready to get even for what Michigan State did in the tournament last year. Do we have any sort of situational revenge on the card tonight?
Yeah, well, my situational spot's something that doesn't happen very often. And, the San Francisco Dons took on Arizona State last week. And here's what they've done. San Francisco flew to Hawaii, played at Hawaii on Friday, come back, get back Sunday, then have a day off or practice Monday, and then they play Arizona State Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you're at home, you have a Pac-12 team coming in, and they go wire to wire and you lose by 4. Well, guess what? You're playing tonight against California. You are playing a second straight night against a team that has 8 days rest.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back and looked in the database. There's only been 14 occurrences with a team that has no rest against a team with over 4 days rest. That team with no rest is 3-11 against the spread. So, this is the only way Cal could come in to work into their schedule, them hosting back-to-back nights. But Cal hasn't played since December 26th. They're off a confidence win against UC Davis. Their only losses are to Duke and Texas. And this is a 5-2 team that, Mark Fox, I guess he didn't forget how to coach from all those years at Georgia. So, you have Fox, who's in his first year at Cal, who's got these kids playing pretty well, and you're getting 9 points against San Francisco. So, situational play tonight on California.
Love that. All right, we got a couple of we got two very marquee-ish games, and these truly are marquee games here tonight, Ralph. We'll start with a team, of course. We'll head to the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Great games here thus far. They will continue to get good. We didn't have a chance to talk about Indiana, by the way, but I'm sure we're going to get to them. Also impressive there. Looks like the Big Ten, or at least the ACC, owns the teams in Michigan. Outside of that, not so much. But tonight, how about North Carolina taking on Ohio State, Ralph? A huge top 10 clash here between these two teams. Ohio State on the road to the Dean Smith Center here at Chapel Hill. This is going to be good. I mean, they're looking to rebound the Tar Heels from a tough loss against Michigan in that Bahamas that we talked about there, the battle for Atlantis, the semifinal. But they did also have a convincing victory over a pretty damn good Oregon team while they were there. So it's a short number. North Carolina at home is a favorite here, laying 2.5, 3 points. Total is 136 here, Ralph. What do you like about this game?
Well, I like this Buckeyes team a lot, but I'm going to say this. Your only true tests were Cincinnati, which was the first game of the season, and Villanova, where they were missing one of their top players. Now, the Buckeyes are 7-0, and not only have they not played a road game, they have not even played a neutral game. They've played all 7 games at home. So with this short number, with them going on the road, while I like the team a lot, I just think this is the worst setting they absolutely can be put in. Oh, yeah, by the way, you come home on Saturday and you have your home opener in Big Ten play against Penn State. You're not looking past North Carolina by any means, but to not have even been tested in a neutral setting and we're December 4th already, there's only one way I can lean, and that's with North Carolina.
Yeah, you mentioned it too. North Carolina is getting a ton out of this kid, Cole Anthony, guys. It's a name you're going to hear a lot of. It's a name we'll probably be talking tomorrow on the top performers. They do have to figure out some of these other role players on this team, some of these other kids to step up outside of him. But North Carolina has dominated this rivalry of sorts here. They've controlled just about every meeting that they've had. North Carolina is 12-2 all time. Ohio State has lost the last 2 times that these teams have met in this ACC Big Ten Challenge. It's also, and you mentioned it, we've been talking about it as a theme. Is this not their first big road test game of the season here against a true contender? I don't know how you go anywhere but North Carolina in this one, Ralph.
Yeah, Cole Anthony is going to be a top 5 pick, and he is the son of NBA star Greg Anthony. So, you have that lineage. You have you have a player's kid who knows. When you're a freshman and you're either a coach's son or a player's son, you're just so much better prepared for the big stage. And, when you're a player like he is, and, he's been playing AAU ball since whenever. So he is so ready for the big stage. And yeah, he will be again a top 5 pick to move into the draft this year.
Game number 2, marquee matchup, Ralph. One of game we started talking about yesterday. You mentioned it early on here in the show. I scratch my head every time I looked at this total opening up at 101 and a half. That would be the Virginia Cavaliers taking on a high school team apparently from Purdue. If you guys love offense, this is not the game you want to watch tonight. Apparently, Ralph. The books are telling us Don't watch this game. Tune in the last 2 minutes because the first one to 35 might win, Ralph.
Yeah, well, I'm looking it up, Joe, and I tweeted this today. Since 2008, so we have 11 seasons at this point, there have been 6 games with a total of 105 or less. So, and when I mentioned the teams that have played, the public's not going to know any of them.
Nope.
Delaware State against Howard, North Dakota against William and Mary in 13, Iona against Denver, St. Louis against Princeton. That was the Majerus and Princeton days. Denver against UC Irvine. So, I mean, there are some names people have heard of, but of those totals that have been 105 or less since 2008, I will say that the last 5 have all gone over since 2010.
Yeah.
And, you know, they've gone over by 7, 23, 22, and 30. So, you know, this is one of these games where tomorrow we're going to say WTF, that it might go over by 30 points and the teams are in the 60s, and we're going to say, is that right? So,
wow.
I am in this belief, though. You know, enough about the total. I just Virginia on the road. I'll tell you what, they take care of business. They already went to Syracuse and won by 14. You played neutral games against Massachusetts and Arizona State. Again, nothing to the competition of Purdue. But Purdue was just in a battle. Hell, they were in that overtime game against Florida State on Saturday in that Niceville Classic. They lost on the road to Marquette. They lost at home to Texas. In my mind, Virginia should be a bigger favorite.
Yeah, I'm a little shocked with the number. I truly am, because, you know, defense travels. Let's face it, because defense, a lot of coaches will always tell you, defense is all about effort, Ralph, right? That's what it's all about. You don't need to scheme up. You don't need to – it's a matter of if you're going to bring it. And you got 2 teams that are going to bring it. It's going to be ugly. I mean, it's ugly,
or
guys.
It's going to be fun if you like defense. I like defensive games in college hoops.
Because then it becomes about strategy, really, throughout the game. You got 2 very good coaches here that are going to be going at it, obviously. This is a chess match here tonight. But, you know, to me, I can't possibly bet an under on a 100 total point. I can't do it. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. I'm going to hold my nose. It's kind of like betting on the Redskins or the Jets or something like that, and just be like, all right, they're going to come through. The Cavaliers don't have the offense. Listen, this game last year, Ralph, in the tournament, how much fun was this game? Was this not one of the best games of the tournament last year, right? This is not going to be that. This is not going to be this at all. Neither of these 2 teams have the kind of offensive firepower that they had last year, but I do think Virginia is going to come out here and they'll be able to play their defense. I do think they're going to have a little more success scoring the ball here, and that'll happen progressively as the year goes on. I'll definitely take the over in this game here tonight, because otherwise I'm giving up all faith in humanity in college basketball. If this thing only goes to 90 points, I might start betting on high school basketball before it's all said and done.
I lean with the under, Joe.
Oh, I can't.
You know, you look at last year's, and the game was tied at 70 going into overtime.
Yes. Yeah.
But
What
you know,
that
was Carson Edwards putting up 42. Guess what? He's not playing for that.
10 of 19 from three-point range. That ain't happening. That ain't happening tonight, guys. But it's going to be fun to play, that's for sure. All right, best bet time here, Ralph. A lot of great games on the card here. A bunch of games we didn't get to. BYU, Utah's another great game on the card here tonight. You touch base on Cal and San Francisco. A lot of value I'm seeing on the card here, Ralph. Is there a best bet you got here that you're going to go with?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Florida Atlantic, and
Canisius, huh?
These teams are playing a third game in 4 nights from the tournament on the weekend. Then they played one more game to hand out the weekend, and you know, Florida Atlantic is a team that uses their bench as much as anyone. Their bench minutes are number 3 in the country. That's exactly what you want when you're playing a team a third game in 4 nights. Canisius has covered some games, but I think they get stretched out in this game. I feel they have the better team with Florida Atlantic at home, only laying 4.5 in a situation where they're coming off a loss against a Bonaventure team, which I like, that got people back and won their game before. Remember, we talked about the Bonaventure game, and I thought the line was off because of the home field edge, and I thought I'd be on Bonaventure. Well, so Florida Atlantic's loss to Bonaventure doesn't faze me one bit. I had Bonaventure as the much better team, but I'll go back and back the Owls tonight.
You're going to go back. All right. A lot of people are going to be very happy to hear you say that there, I'm sure. I had mentioned earlier Oklahoma State, Georgetown at home. I think Oklahoma State is playing some great basketball. I think they've kind of been down last year. I do think that this year they're certainly on the rise, despite the allegations and the investigations and all of that. I think this is going to be just way too big a matchup here for Georgetown, given what we know about the last 24 to 48 hours, and if this has been festering for a while. This is a good spot for Oklahoma State to kind of take it to Georgetown and Patrick Ewing. I also love the over in the Penn-Villanova game here, Ralph. I think this is a game here where both teams are extremely efficient on offense. I think both of these teams have had lackluster starts to what's going on. I think the Quakers surprised a lot of people thus far. They can score, and we know Villanova can score too. But I do expect both of these teams to kind of come into their own offensively here tonight. And the over, it's hit a lot here in this matchup between these two teams, especially, I believe, most recently. I think they are 4-0 the last 4 games to the over in this spot. I think we can see some points coming in this game here between Penn and Villanova tonight.
Joe, I was on Penn and Arizona over a couple weeks ago. That total was like 35, and it ended up scoring 174.
Yep.
And then you look at what Penn did following that up. They went to Long Beach State, and they played Long Beach State in a neutral setting, and they put up 95. So put up 82 at Arizona, 95 against Long Beach State. You know, if they get into the 70s, you win this total.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Jordan Dingle, a big name that you're going to want to keep, keep that in the back of your head. This is a kid here that's going to be able to score some points. Villanova's last 4, at least 83 points in each of them. So expect some scoring there and expect some opportunities to be able to profit here tonight. But it starts, guys, of course, with you heading over to wagertalk.com. Get there today. Head over to Ralph's page there, the Cal Sports page. Make sure you're tailing Ralph also on Twitter at CalSportsLV. Great information, as always, throughout the day that he posts there. It's all about knowledge. Knowledge is power. No better knowledge than what you get here on this show. And, of course, following Ralph at CalSportsLV. So, Ralph, good luck with the plays. A lot going on here tonight, man. The good news is, we'll get to come back and break it all down once again, Ralph.
We'll see you in 23, Joe. Thanks.
You got it. Good luck, guys. Enjoy wagertalk.com. Get there today.